Let me describe someone to you and tell me if this sounds familiar.
They're 34 years old.
They work in tech, maybe finance, or they're a senior manager somewhere.
They're making $105,000 a year.
6 figures. The dream salary they fantasized about in college. The number that was supposed to mean they'd finally made it. And yet, they're stressed. They've got maybe $8,000 in savings. When their laptop died last month, they hesitated before replacing it. They're renting because they can't afford a down payment in their city. They're maxing out their $401,000 contribution, but it doesn't feel like enough. They look at their paycheck every 2 weeks and think, where does it all go? They did everything right.
They got the degree.
They climbed the ladder.
They hit 6 figures before 35.
They're in the top 20% of individual earners in America, and they feel like they're barely getting by. If you've ever looked at your salary and thought, I make too much money to feel this broke, this video is going to make a lot of things click into place. My name is Tani, and I spend way too much time analyzing why 6-figure earners today feel poorer than 50,000 earners did 30 years ago.
If you are someone making good money on paper, but see it and figure out why it doesn't feel like enough, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this resonates with you.
Here's the thing. We've been told that $100,000 is the magic number. It's the salary that's supposed to unlock financial freedom, security, and the comfortable middle-class lifestyle. It's the number that's referenced in every personal finance article, every career guide, every motivational post on LinkedIn.
Except there's a problem. That number hasn't changed in 30 years, but everything else has.
When people talk about a 6-figure salary as the gold standard, they're referencing an idea that solidified in the 1990s and early 2000s.
Back then, $100,000 actually meant something. It meant you were rich, or at least very comfortable.
It meant you could afford a house, 2 cars, save for retirement, take vacations, and still have money left over. But we're not in the 1990s anymore. We're in 2024.
And $100,000 today buys you what $50,000 bought you in 1990.
Maybe less in some cities. Let me show you the math. And I want you to be honest with yourself about whether this tracks with your experience.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics inflation calculator, $50,000 in 1990 is equivalent to about $117,000 in 2026 dollars.
So right off the bat, if you're making $100,000 today, you're actually making less in real purchasing power than someone making $50,000 did in 1990. You're below the inflation-adjusted equivalent, and we haven't even gotten to the expenses yet.
But general inflation doesn't tell the whole story, because not all prices inflated equally.
Some things got cheaper. Your flat-screen TV costs a fraction of what a TV cost in 1990. Your smartphone is more powerful than a computer that would have cost $5,000 back then. But the things that actually matter for your quality of life, the big fixed costs that determine whether you feel financially secure,
those didn't just keep pace with inflation.
They left it in the dust. Let's start with housing, because this is where the pain really hits. In 1990, the median home price in the United States was about $123,000. In 2026, it's over $420,000. That's a 240% increase. General inflation over that same period,
about 134%.
Housing costs have increased at nearly double the rate of general inflation. But it gets worse when you factor in interest rates and actual monthly payments.
In 1990, you could get a 30-year fixed mortgage at around 10% interest.
Yeah, that sounds high. But check this out. A $123,000 house at 10% interest meant a monthly payment of about $1,080. In 2026, even with lower interest rates around 7%, a $420,000 house means a monthly payment of about $2,800. That's a 159% increase in your monthly housing cost. And we haven't even talked about property taxes and insurance, which have also exploded.
So, if you're making $100,000 today and spending $2,800 a month on a mortgage, that's 33% of your gross income going to housing. In 1990, someone making $50,000 and paying $1,080 was spending 26% of their income on housing. You're paying a higher percentage of a nominally higher salary, but getting less financial breathing room. And that's the national median.
If you're in a coastal city, a tech hub, or any desirable urban area, your rent or mortgage is eating 40%, 50%, sometimes 60% of your take-home pay.
I know people making $120,000 in San Francisco who have roommates. That wasn't a thing for six-figure earners in 1990.
Now, let's talk about education, because this is where the generation wealth transfer really shows up.
In 1990, the average cost of tuition and fees at a four-year public university was about $2,000 per year.
In 2026, it's over $11,000 per year. That's a 450% increase, more than 3 times the rate of general inflation.
And private universities. In 1990, average private school tuition was around $10,000 per year.
Today, it's over $40,000. If you went to college any time after 2000, there's a very good chance you graduated with student loans. The average borrower today carries about $38,000 in student loan debt.
Monthly payment on that, around $400 to $500 per month for 10 years.
The person making $50,000 in 1990, they probably graduated with little to no debt.
They might have worked part-time during college and paid their way through.
That option doesn't exist anymore. You cannot work your way through college on a part-time job in 2026. The math literally doesn't work. So, you're making $100,000, but $500 of it disappears every month before you even think about rent or food. That's $6,000 a year, 6% of your gross income, going to pay for an education that was functionally free for the generation before you.
Let's keep going. Healthcare. In 1990, the average American spent about $2,600 per year on healthcare.
Adjusted for inflation, that'd be about $6,000 today. Want to guess what we actually spend?
Try $13,000 per person per year. Healthcare costs have increased by over 500% since 1990, dwarfing general inflation.
Now, if you're lucky, your employer covers a chunk of that.
But even with employer-sponsored insurance, the average worker is paying $1,400 per year in premiums, plus deductibles that can be $3,000, $5,000, or higher.
And if you're self-employed, your employer offers bad insurance. You're paying $600 to $800 per month just for the privilege of having coverage before you ever see a doctor. The person making $50,000 in 1990 had cheaper, more comprehensive insurance.
Copays were lower, deductibles were lower,
prescription costs were lower. You're making twice as much nominally, but your healthcare costs have quintupled.
Now, let's talk about the expenses that didn't even exist in 1990, or barely existed, but are now functionally mandatory.
Internet and phone service.
In 1990, you had a landline, maybe $30 a month.
Today, you need high-speed internet for work, $70 a month. You need a smartphone, $80 to $100 a month for a decent plan. That's $150 to $170 a month, nearly $2,000 a year. For connectivity that's required just to participate in modern work and life. Subscriptions, streaming services, software, cloud storage, professional memberships.
In 1990, you bought something once.
Today, everything is a subscription.
Netflix, Spotify, Adobe, Microsoft, Amazon Prime, your gym, your meditation app, your meal kit service. It's death by 1,000 small charges, but they add up to $200 to $300 a month if you're not careful. That's another $3,000 a year. Childcare. This one's brutal. In 1990, the average cost of childcare was negligible in most families because one parent stayed home, or family helped, or it just wasn't professionalized the way it is now.
Today, the average cost of full-time daycare is $15,000 per year per child. In expensive cities, it's $25,000 to $35,000.
That's more than college tuition at a public university.
If you're making $100,000 and you have 2 kids in daycare, you're spending $30,000 to $50,000 just so you can go to work. Your effective income is now $50,000 to $70,000, except you're still getting taxed on the full $100,000. And here's the kicker.
All these increases, housing, education, healthcare, childcare, these aren't luxury expenses.
These are the baseline costs of participating in middle-class life. You're not buying a yacht.
You're not flying first class. You're paying for a place to live, health insurance, and the ability to work. So let's do the math on what actually happens to that $100,000 salary. $100,000 gross income. Effective tax rate with federal, state, and payroll taxes. About 25% to 30%, depending on where you live.
Let's call it 27%. That's $27,000 in taxes.
You're down to $73,000 in take-home.
Housing, if you're paying the national median mortgage, $33,600 per year.
You're down to $39,400. Student loans, $6,000 per year, down to $33,400.
Health insurance and out-of-pocket costs, $5,000 per year,
down to $28,400.
Car payment, insurance, and gas, because most of America isn't walkable, $8,000 per year,
down to $20,400.
Food for one person, if you're cooking at home most of the time, $5,000 per year,
down to $15,400.
Utilities, internet, phone, $4,000 per year,
down to $11,400. Subscriptions and miscellaneous necessary expenses, $3,000 per year, down to $8,400.
You're making $100,000 a year, and after covering just the basics, no vacations, no retirement contributions beyond the minimum, no emergency fund building, no entertainment, no dining out, you've got $8,400 left. That's $700 a month.
One unexpected car repair, one medical emergency, one job loss, and you're wiped out.
The person making $50,000 in 1990 had more margin than you do, making $100,000 in 2024.
They weren't rich, but they had breathing room.
They could save. They could absorb a shock.
They had financial flexibility.
You don't. And here's the psychological trap that makes this even worse.
Because you're making six figures, because you're in the top 20% of earners, you feel like you should be doing well. Society tells you that you are doing well. Your LinkedIn feed is full of people celebrating six-figure job offers like they've won the lottery. So when you're stressed about money, when you can't afford a down payment, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, you feel like it's a personal failure. You feel like you must be doing something wrong. You must be bad with money.
You must be overspending.
But you're not.
The game changed. The goalposts moved. And nobody updated the playbook.
$100,000 used to be rich.
Now it's barely comfortable. And in expensive cities, it's legitimately struggling. So what do you do about it? Because I'm not just here to depress you.
I'm here to give you a framework for thinking differently.
First, you have to accept that you cannot lifestyle your way into feeling wealthy at $100,000 in 2026. You can't. The math doesn't work.
If you're trying to live the life that $100,000 was supposed to buy in 1990, you will go broke.
You have to recalibrate your expectations.
Second, you have to ruthlessly prioritize the big three: housing, transportation, and food.
These are the categories that will make or break your financial life. If you're spending 40% of your income on rent, you need to move or get a roommate or find a way to increase your income.
I know that sucks. I know it feels like you shouldn't have to at your income level.
But the alternative is staying broke.
Third, you need to think in terms of effective hourly rate, not salary.
If your $100,000 job requires you to live in an expensive city, spend 2 hours commuting, and pay $2,500 in rent for a one-bedroom, your effective purchasing power is way lower than someone making $75,000 in a low cost of living area.
Remote work changed this equation.
If you can keep the six-figure salary and move to a place where housing is half the cost, you just gave yourself a massive raise without changing your income. Fourth, you have to get comfortable with the fact that 6 figures today is what 5 figures used to be. You're not rich. You're middle class. Maybe upper middle class if you're smart with money.
But you're not wealthy.
Wealthy people don't worry about mortgage payments. You do. So stop spending like you're wealthy. And finally, the only way to actually get ahead at this income level is to avoid lifestyle inflation and invest aggressively. Every dollar you don't spend on upgrading your life needs to go into investments.
Max out your $401,000.
Open a Roth IRA. Build a taxable brokerage account.
Because at this income level, you're not going to get rich from your salary.
Your salary is just the seed capital for investments that will compound over time. The person making $50,000 in 1990 could get rich from their salary because their fixed costs were low enough that they could save real money every month. You can't. Your fixed costs eat too much. So your path to wealth isn't through saving more of your paycheck.
It's through investing what you can and letting time do the heavy lifting. I want to leave you with this. $100,000 isn't what it used to be, but it's still a privileged position. You're not struggling the way someone making $35,000 is struggling.
You have options.
You have leverage. You have the ability to build wealth if you're strategic.
But you have to stop comparing yourself to the fantasy of what six figures used to mean and start dealing with the reality of what it means today. It means you're comfortable if you're smart. It means you can build wealth if you're disciplined. It means you're better off than most, but you're not rich. And once you accept that, once you stop trying to live like a 1,990 six-figure earner and start living like a 2024 six-figure earner, the stress starts to fade.
You stop feeling like you are failing because you see and afford the life you thought this salary would buy.
You start making decisions based on reality, not nostalgia.
If this video helped you reframe what six figures actually means in today's economy, smash that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges how you think about money.